And away we go on the Hey Mary Kay edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. The Browns coming off of one of the most devastating, bizarre, all sorts of adjectives to describe this loss, Mary Kay, 31-30 to the Jets. And you can imagine our Football Insider subscribers have all kinds of questions. And I dug in and I found the one texter who wasn't mad at me for suggesting that Nick Chubb scoring with a minute 55 left was maybe in hindsight a pretty big failure by this team. So Jim Buddy from Pittsburgh says, hey, Mary Kay, I agree with Dan that Nick Chubb needed to be more aware of the clock game management. It seems like the word never got to them from the bench. Why the heck not? Now, we discussed this on the pod last night. I think most of us were in agreement that, yes, they probably should have figured out a way to run out the clock there. Mm-hmm. And Kevin today, I thought was very interesting, saying that he kind of took it on himself, that he should have gotten that word to Nick Chubb and to the rest of those skill players that, get down and run out the clock. So I guess I'm taking this question from Jim. I mean, hey, Mary Kay, in the aftermath of all this, having heard everything, who screwed up here?
Well, first of all, there is no way that a running back should have clock management in his mind when he's out there running the football. That is not his responsibility to know that. Now, when you go back 2 years ago to the no mas run in the victory over the Texans at First Energy Stadium, the 10-7 victory over the Texans, he was told by Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield, or at least Kevin Stefanski via Baker Mayfield through the headset in the huddle, to not score on that long run at the end of the game and do not give the ball back to Deshaun Watson. These guys they're not sitting there with analytics charts and all that kind of stuff. They're supposed to go out and run their tails off. And that's what they're supposed to do. And of course, unless you're told stop and do not run into the end zone, you're going to do it. That's what you're trained to do. That's what you're supposed to do, unless you are told not to. So it is absolutely 100% on Kevin Stefanski to tell them not to. Now, he admitted today that he basically didn't do that. I think because they must have erroneously thought that if they went up by 14 points there, and that they had less than 2 minutes left in the football game, that they were going to be okay and that the game would be well in hand. Lo and behold, it was one of the most colossal meltdowns, the most colossal meltdown since their last colossal meltdown 21 years ago. I mean, it's just 21 years, 2,229 games. I mean, that's not happened. That is just how egregious this whole thing is, that it hasn't happened since 2001 when they did it against the Bears in week 9. So absolutely, this is on Kevin Stefanski. I'm glad he really emphasized today that he needed to take the heat for that, because the heat needs to come off of Nick Chubb.
Okay, so there's a few things that I think points that need to be made here. And I think you're right. I think Kevin Stefanski does need to own this. I also think there's this like either or being done on social media and with a lot of our texters that like, well, if you think Nick Chubb, or we're saying Kevin Stefanski in this case, if you think Kevin Stefanski made a mistake here, it takes the blame off the defense. And that's not true either. We had tons of questions about the defense. We're certainly going to get into all of that. But I think one point here is like, this is not an either or. This is just, this was a mistake. And then this was an even bigger disaster after the mistake.
Yeah, I mean, as I wrote in my rewritten game story last night, like after that point, every single thing that could go wrong did go wrong, right? I mean, it was Murphy's Law after that. Everything went wrong that could in all phases of the game. I mean, my goodness, you have the missed extra point right after that. When does Cade York ever miss a kick that short? Never. I mean, we see him obviously, boom, 68-yarders, 78-yarders. So for him to miss an extra point there, you knew that, that the football gods were not smiling down upon the Browns at the end of this football game. Then, you've got the onside kick. They don't recover the onside kick. You've got the long bomb that they knew that these guys were going to have to throw a long bomb to get back into the game. And they just had a completely blown coverage again. And we've been trying to get to the bottom of it. Denzel thought that they were in cloud cover 2. Grant Delpit apparently thought they were supposed to be in cover 3. Denzel thinks he was supposed to have the flat pass and wasn't supposed to take Corey Davis deep on the 66-yard touchdown. But it seemed to me, and he said, it wasn't my coverage, wasn't my guy. And then you had Grant basically saying, hey, he wasn't conceding anything. There are 2 different coverages that you can play in that situation, and we had a communication error. So it's hard to say, what exactly was supposed to happen unless Joe Woods really, is willing to break that down and explain it for us. But, those guys don't want to throw their players under the bus. So, it's going to be hard information to come by. Suffice it to say that Denzel Ward thought one thing, Grant Delpit thought another thing, and it resulted in a 66-yard touchdown. But that wasn't the only touchdown they gave up. They gave up another one, 15-yarder, wide open over the middle, Garrett Wilson, 22 seconds left in the football game. And then just because Jacoby Brissett had played so well all day and did not want to be left out of the meltdown, he threw an interception when he did get the ball back with 22 seconds left and an opportunity for maybe a Hail Mary or something. So, everybody participated in the collective meltdown, but I just don't think we can overstate the fact that had Nick Chubb been told to go down instead of scoring there, or to go out of bounds after getting the first down, the game would have been over. The Browns would be 2-0.
And so here's the last